welcome the fuck back.
Welcome the fuck back. If you're watching YouTube right now, you can see a debut of Mama, Alyssa's dog, on my lap, because this is the first time we are recording.
No.
Oh, because it's coming out after. Oh, man.
It's okay. We've done this before. But yeah, we have a really great episode. We get a lot of good feedback when we do like mental health centered episodes. And obviously with everything that's happened, like me and Molly are really passionate about talking about that and being open and hearing other people talk about their journey with it. And we have a really great guest. Her name is Olivia Miller. She's an advocate, a mental health advocate, and in Canada, which is really cool. We're going to talk to a little Canadian.
We're getting international up in here.
So, yeah, I'm really excited to talk to her. She's with a lot of different projects that really help youth deal with their anxieties and whatever mental health crises comes their way. And it's really great to have someone like her on to talk about the ins and outs of things like this, and balancing that with school life. Because she's a youngin' doing so much, so we love that.
Doing so much. So welcome, Olivia. Welcome, Olivia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yay!
Thank you so much for having me.
Our first international guest.
Oh my God,
I'm honored.
You're right. It is our first.
Yeah,
guys, we're international.
Yeah, we're doing big things over here.
Oh my gosh. So we're really excited to talk to you. Like we said when we're introducing you, like we're very much into talking about mental health advocacy. Again, the year that we had really put it into focus for us specifically.
Yeah.
Me, definitely. Like I'm searching for therapists right now, and it's like a really fun journey to like look on Psychology Today. That's like a Tinder
right
for like therapists, and seeing how that works out. But I'm curious, like, how did you start into mental health advocacy yourself?
Yeah, I started because I really, truly didn't have any other choice. And I love telling people that because it's not necessarily something that I chose to do. I stumbled into it. I struggled with OCD, anxiety, and depression when I was very young. And it would kind of come and go in different ways in my life. But then when I hit high school, I just really started struggling with the people around me, just not really knowing how to interact with the people around me because I overthought everything to like an nth degree. So once I realized that I wasn't the only one who thought like this, it kind of was a no-brainer for me to start reaching out to the mental health community and finding friends there, because I realized that this was a way that other people thought as well. And if I was going to be successful someday, be happy someday, I needed to find other people who understood it, so that I created that support system for myself. So in some ways, I don't really know what it's like to not be involved in mental health in some way, shape, or form. It has always been kind of the filter that I see things through for my whole life, and it's brought really great moments. So I definitely wouldn't ask for anything else.
That's awesome.
And so you're 19 right now. So when you started, I mean, that type of self-awareness, and not only self-awareness of like, oh, I'm unhappy or I'm struggling with this, or maybe there's something I could, but to actually take action and seek it out and do something about it, that takes a lot, even for like 40-year-old adults. So
yeah.
I have a lot of admiration that you did that. At what age? I mean, in high school. So that's like when you started, I mean, 14, 15 kind of?
Yeah, 15, 16 is about when I started talking about it. I'm from a very small town here in Canada, and they definitely were ready for these kinds of conversations, but they weren't happening. So when I started events in the community and I started like an Instagram page about mental health, like that was what so many people were ready for. And people that I was never close to in high school have since reached out to me now that we're in different areas of Ontario, and they've just said like, wow, like this is really great work that you're doing. Like this is definitely something I went through in high school, and it's people I never would have talked to if I hadn't started talking about it. So I think it's the kind of thing that so many people are ready for. It's just really uncomfortable to start the conversations.
So uncomfortable. Yeah, it's so true. And I wonder too, with the community that you built for yourself, have you noticed, I mean, might be a Captain Obvious question, but have you noticed the kind of shift when it comes to conversations around mental health and people dealing with their anxieties in general since the pandemic started? And like, what are those conversations like?
Yeah, I think before, if you were really self and socially aware, you were noticing your mental health and kind of how it would ebb and flow. But I think because of the collective trauma that we're going through with this pandemic, it's forced everybody to like pay attention to their brain. Like if you were someone who didn't before, you have to now because your job might be relying on it, your family might be relying on it, your friends, your social circles. And it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of misunderstanding as well, because this pandemic is weird in that it's affecting us constantly, but we don't necessarily feel it constantly because it's there and it's affecting everything we do, but it's not something that holds us back from doing everything. So we kind of are in this weird state of flux where we're still moving but not moving, and it's definitely a weird reality, and so many people aren't used to managing themselves and managing their relationships with boundaries and just all of these pieces that now we have to face. And because we haven't been taught in schools, because we don't have proper resources accessible to us through media or the internet, like we're starting from scratch. So many of us are.
That's so interesting because I feel like America's the same way with the kind of the lack of resources. I don't know if you've noticed, like, do you think there's a difference between, I know you're speaking as a Canadian yourself, but I wonder if there's like a really close connection between how both of our countries deal with mental health, because here it's very much like, I mean, it's getting better now, but it's definitely been something that, like, you know, going to therapy, oh, you're crazy, you know?
Or like the ego behind like mental health, even the genre of like self-help books, right? That had a stigma to it where it's like, it's the least ridiculous thing to want to evolve yourself as a human. And yet somehow at least like in our childhood, like in the 90s, and now I know it's definitely changing now, but you know, it was like a thing of like, oh, self-help book is for people that are like pathetic or they're lost or they're weak. And really it's actually the strongest pursuit that one could do to evolve yourself and help yourself learn who you are and how your mind works. And kind of what you were saying about the pandemic forcing everybody to look inward. I wonder if you think the same thing, that there were probably a lot of people who thought that they were doing that and were just like, oh, I'm checking in, I'm writing in my journal. Yeah. But like life was also like capitalism and everything was still running, and you were a cog in that like everything was going well in the world. And so it was easy to be like, well, I'm doing good, I'm succeeding, and I'm checking in with myself. And then everything stops. And then people are like, oh, I actually wasn't doing that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we were doing as well as we could in the world that we live in. And I will always bring it back to what our reality looks like, because we saw such a drastic change in what things looked like for us that we kind of realized, like, wait, I maybe wasn't doing very well before. Like, I was just doing the best I could with what was given to me. Right. And now we have this chance to reset. And as much as we're all experiencing trauma and we feel the COVID fatigue and defeated and even trying to build a better reality, we do have that opportunity as a greater society to say, okay, but does it have to be this way? Do we have to move so quickly that our brains like have very minimal time to catch up? Right. I mean, I have been re-healing from things I thought I was totally fine with because I've slowed down and I've had no choice but to face it again. Right. And that shows me that the world I was living in before was not necessarily the best environment for my growth, because I didn't fully heal from it. I had to go back and revisit it. And the second that we recognize kind of what this time is teaching us, we see that we need to slow down. Like, our society is moving so quickly and in so many different social issues that's having a negative effect, but particularly in our connection with ourselves and our connection with others, we don't have the time to really know ourselves and know the people around us when we move as quickly as we have been.
Yeah, it's like we think we're supposed to move as fast as computers, but we're actually animals, and it's like not natural. Like you said, we don't even have time to process things that are happening to us. We think we are, because we're like, maybe we're sad for a week, but then a year later you're like, whoa, I never actually worked through that all the way because it's coming up again. And it's like we have these unrealistic expectations for ourselves as human beings.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm really interested too, because you do a lot of work with like youth entrepreneurship, which is so awesome. And I wonder like how you started with that and what benefits you've seen from that in the mental health world.
Absolutely. I kind of like my whole advocacy journey, I just stumbled upon doing the kind of entrepreneurship route. So in high school, when I was really struggling, I reached the point where I really couldn't get out of bed. I would call my parents and ask for a ride home like halfway through the day. And we established that I could do some classes online and stuff, but I was starting to get physically sick being in the building just from my anxiety being so bad. So at this point in time, I would look around and I would just be so surprised that no one was doing anything, because I would look around and people had their heads down, headphones in, no connection with each other. It was obvious that people walked out of the bathroom sobbing and no one did anything. It was just like this collective depression in my school that no one touched, no one talked about. And so I was talking to a friend one day, and I was saying, like, isn't this just like awful that no one does anything about it? Like, we just keep accepting that this is a reality. And she told me about this girl from Sunderland, UK, named Paige, who put up little written positive messages on a local bridge. And in doing that, she ended up preventing over a dozen suicides.
Wow.
And the impact of her campaign was wild, like beyond what she had even imagined. And so we thought, well, why can't we bring this kind of idea here? Like, our community needs this. Let's take away the preventing suicide aspect and just bring broad awareness to our community and start these conversations. So we launched events in different spots in the region, and we had politicians, as local leaders, therapists come out and talk about it. People who you would never expect to see at these events showed up. We had people in schools write the little messages, and we had local artists kind of design them, and we tried to get as many people involved as possible. And it was a really beautiful thing to see our community come together. I think what was most surprising for me is how many people really did need it. Like, yeah. I was just so surprised at how many people were just like, this is something I didn't like realize I needed to see in our community. So it was a very beautiful thing, and connecting with other youth through this project, I realized just how much it had changed my attitude towards life. I wasn't feeling any better in my environment, but I was feeling more optimistic for my future. I knew that this was a direction I wanted to take, and there are people that I've connected with through this who are now doing the same thing. They're taking the activism route, the entrepreneurship route, and it's absolutely changed their lives. I fully believe that anyone can do it.
That's amazing.
That's so amazing. And it's like extra, I don't know, in your position, because feeling depressed and anxious and, you know, the shades of that have touched everybody, I would argue, like obviously some more than others, but we all know the feeling. It's a very isolating feeling. And so when you feel that alone, for you to look outside yourself and be like, well, I don't think I'm alone. I know I feel alone, but I don't think I am. And I think if I can create this community, which you did, and then you see, like you said, like, well, a lot of people needed this and they just didn't. But in the midst of your own struggles, when you're feeling so alone, I'm impressed that you saw the bigger picture to be like, I don't think I'm alone and I'm going to do something about this. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one thing that we recognize when we do get quiet and we do get still, that we feel very motivated to help other people. We know that it feels good to help other people. So in this moment, I don't know that I even recognize like what this would potentially do to my mental health. Like, it wasn't a matter of, I'm already in a bad place, this could make it worse, I guess I'll just do it anyways. It was just like, people need help, I'm seeing this, so that's just what I have to do. And I don't know if everybody is like that, but I definitely know that highly sensitive people or people who have experienced trauma or do have mental illnesses are like that. They know what it's like to feel so much that when they see it in other people, they just feel that urge to help.
Yeah, you recognize it.
Yeah, and you're a student, which is phenomenal too, to be doing so much. And as a student, so like, how do you kind of balance those kind of lives in a helpful and productive way?
I definitely have had to learn that advocacy is not my whole identity, and to be patient, especially right now with online learning, and understanding that this is contributing to my advocacy journey, but it's just another facet of who I am right now. And sometimes it's hard to follow through with things you can't immediately see are helping you. So when I'm doing my classes right now and it feels absolutely draining and boring and like I'm not picking up any of the information, I have to recognize that it's going to help me, whether it's just like undergrad written on my resume down the road. But I think it's really easy to just get wrapped up in one identity and not recognize that we are more than just a daughter. We're more than just an artist. We're more than just a creator. And to just get stuck in one of those things. And one of the things I've loved to challenge myself with is just recognizing that I'm so many different pieces. I'm so many different people to others. And that can be something that really helps me balance it out and recognize that I need to put attention and care to all of the different pieces of my life.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really important.
That's something that like when I was a student, like I as an acting student, I've like kind of talked to you about how like mentally draining that can be and emotionally draining and manipulative too. How much that would have helped just give me tools to deal with things today. So that's so awesome that you do that. And speaking of that, like, because we are older and it was very different for us growing up a little bit, you know, like, especially in college, what have you noticed in your generation that's like different when it comes to approaching the subject of mental health and our anxieties and our depressions than you've seen from other generations? And feel free to roast us.
Well, no. What I think is cool about right now, and I will say this for all generations, is just how cool it is to be an advocate. And I do think this becomes dangerous in terms of white feminism and not being radically inclusive. But there is such a push and such an excitement for changing this world. Like I was very aware, I don't know if it's just the way I was raised or where I'm from, but I was very aware when I grew up that my generation would be one to change a lot of things. And I think if I'm going to roast any generation, it's the boomers, because that's what my family has done for years.
Yeah,
but it was definitely, I was just aware that like the boomers are going to change a lot for you. You're going to have to like have multiple careers throughout your life. And there was just an awareness from the very beginning for me that this generation was going to be a different one. But I think we really take pride in that. I'm always blown away at how beautiful and creative this generation can be. And I do think that they're more comfortable starting difficult conversations because there's that push to change the world. There's that push to be compassionate in your knowledge of other people and be respectful of their spaces too.
Yeah. And it's like this, just one generation away, it has massive, especially with the internet, massive differences, because like, I remember when the internet started and then we learned like typing. And then even when I graduated college in 2011 and Instagram didn't exist when I was in college. Like it just started when I moved out to LA. And I think, you know, there's the light and the dark to both sides. I'm like, thank God the Instagram wasn't there where instantly a photo is up when I'm at a party, because I don't know what that would look like, you know. But then at the same time, Facebook, but I had to soberly plug in my camera to my computer the next day and upload the photos that I took. But like, I do think about growing up, like Alyssa and I were subject to the news I listened to was the news my parents listened to. And I'm grateful that my views align with my parents, but I didn't have my own personal device with like people from all over the world just to like scroll through, even just Instagram, let alone news apps, but like Instagram or TikTok, where you have access, you see people all over the world of all different races and genders and ages, sharing their viewpoints. And I can imagine in the same token that it could be overwhelming and negative, it also might allow Gen Z to be like, at least see the bigger picture and separate themselves from their little world in high school sometimes, where you're just like, okay, well, there's more out there in the world and people are doing these things and I can do these things. Whereas I feel like for us, maybe you feel the same, Alyssa, we had to I knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't like seeing it being done because I couldn't get out into the world yet until I moved out. Yeah. But yeah, it allows you to get into the world, and your generation, I feel like, isn't, like you said, is not as afraid to just kind of jump into things and speak up because they know that there's other people out there who agree, or there's other people out there doing it, and it's beautiful.
Like if there was a TikTok, oh my God, first of all, I wouldn't get work done. But like, it's also just like the awareness that so many people, like you just reach so many people with that medium, and there's so many ideas that are floating around, and that would have made such an impact. Mm-hmm. That's our sad story.
Yeah. What do you think are the most valuable tips that you've learned in mental health advocacy, and how do you see yourself in this field in the future?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I do say often, because it's the only thing that I haven't changed my mind on. I feel like I'm always learning life lessons and changing my mind about them, but is that everything's going to change. Like right now is never going to happen again. And that's very helpful no matter what mood you're in. Because if you're down, then you know it's not going to last forever. But if you're feeling happy, then you can be more appreciative of the moment, knowing that it won't happen exactly like that again. And I think what's really cool about that too is it creates kind of respect for those around you, because you recognize that they've chosen to be with you in this moment. I think we're really struggling as a generation to understand that we don't owe each other anything. That was something I had to learn very early on, that the people in my life are here because they chose to be, and that's a wonderful and beautiful thing. But if they decide that I'm just not right for their goals and their version of happiness, then I have to accept that. And that can be a really hard thing to recognize that, but that makes us appreciate them more in the moment. So I absolutely would say that knowing that everything is going to change is definitely hard to grapple with, but it's been one of the things that's changed my life in the way that I'm able to view things and move on from darker patches for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before we let you go, do you have any like advice to anybody that's like thinking, but like maybe they're too much in their head, or they just think that it's like they don't have the tools or the voice to want to do the work that you do? Do you have any advice to them?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I had no idea what I was doing when I started my advocacy. So I would say that reaching out to people who are already in the field is really important, because they're going to want to talk to you. They love that there are other people wanting to change the world and help them. And I've never met an activist who doesn't want to help out. So I would recommend doing that, but also to not put too much pressure on yourself to get it right, because you definitely just won't. Like, you can try as hard as you want, but yeah, there definitely will be bumps in the road. But
awesome. That's so awesome to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, I can't wait for people to, again, we're going to link everything, all your beautiful projects that you do on our Instagram and our episode notes. But yeah, thank you so much, Olivia, for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat.
Wow. Honestly, I think there's never too many perspectives to get on the issue of mental health. Yeah. And for different age ranges, like different generations. I mean, Olivia's 19 and we're like 31, 32, and it doesn't get old. And the more perspectives you get, I think the clearer it becomes, and the more tools there are available for everybody listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to reach out to her, I'm gonna link all of these in our show notes, but to tell you guys right off the bat, all these different Instagram handles to follow, Instagrams to follow, at Liv Catherine, at CMHAWW, at Bridges of Hope Project, at The Activist Collab, and at Umbrella PJCT. Again, for all the spellings, go to our show notes, go to our Instagram. We're going to shout all of these amazing projects out. And fuck yeah. Yeah,
so we're promoting this week the Canadian Mental Health Association. The Canadian Mental Health Association Waterloo Wellington, CMHAWW, provides a full care system for those with addictions, mental health, or developmental needs. They serve everyone from children to adults to seniors, all under one roof. Their programs help individuals and families to lead lives filled with meaning and promise. To learn more and donate, please visit cmhaWW.ca.
Hell yeah. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the SOS Pod. Subscribe to us on YouTube at SOS with Molly and Alyssa. Rate, review us on anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever. It helps us reach more people when you review. So that would be really helpful. And we're on
what? I'm confused.
Patreon.
Oh, I was like, on Instagram?
We're on.
Wow, I failed. We're on Patreon. We're on Patreon, you guys. So if you can subscribe, you can do $3 a month, $7 a month, or $11 a month, and just help support us. And each tier comes with different benefits, including extended guest interviews, bonus content, little gifts that we're going to send each of you. And then when our merch comes out, exclusive discounts and that kind of thing. And yeah, so please jump on there and support us.
Yeah, shout out to Steve and Nija for being patrons.
Yes. We love you both so much.
And yeah.
Here's to turn. Oh, I'm Molly Cottrell.
Oh God.
I'm really off right now. I'm sorry.
And I'm Alyssa Rosado.
And here's to turning meltdown
into magic.